Now, black people are ticklish on this because black people think that everything in the Bible is true. I question the intelligence of anyone who thinks everything in the Bible is true or supposed to be true. It's allegory, stories told to illustrate a point at a time when there were very few people reading books. And most of what went into the making of the Bible was copied from Egyptian texts. Now, if you want to get so dewy-eyed over the Bible, which is a carbon copy of a carbon copy, why don't you go back and read the original Egyptian text?
We need to, get information out to our people without them being sensitive to their belief systems.
The black man who becomes a Jew will go out and point his finger at the European American who says he's a Jew. You ain't no Jew. You. And then it ain't got nothing to do with that.
And this is one of the things that I recognize that's terribly injurious to us, even in our dealings with each other, which will demonstrate as soon as you see them getting together arguing dogma and calling it religion, because most of the masses don't get religion. And that's not an attack on anyone, that's just simply the truth. We, the Moors of the North Gate, are referred to as the Ibri, which some people call Hebrew. It is no Hebrew, it's Ibri. That's those of us who crossed the river. It cannot be emphasized enough. There is no difference between us and our brothers and sisters on the other side of the water after the land's separated, except some of us are mixed. Those who crossed the river are the Ibri, falsely called Hebrew. Hebrew is a modern corruption of Ibri. We are the Ibri. We're not different people.
This is a Greek word. That's not a Hebrew word. Haribu is what Yosef ben Yochanan explained about the concept. If you look at the dictionary, you'll see the glyph Greek behind the word Hebrew. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not, folks are not of that ancient descendancy. Yes, because they came out of where? Where did the Hebrews come out? Ethiopia. Right, Ethiopia. Okay, so this is her web. And this is where we find this Moorish coding, now called Masonic coding, in the Bible. Hiram Abiff is the first key given about this web. What was Hiram Abiff? He was a widow's son. And who is the black widow? Spider, right? And the spider does what? Makes the web. The spider does not build the web. The bird goes and gets its branches. The spider creates out of her. Okay, there's no finer symbol in the universe. If you ever had the privilege to see a spider at work, boy, it's something. You're talking about real mathematics and geometry. She don't make no mistakes. She be busy.
And that widow is also mentioned in the book of Revelations. But it's very brief and implied, nothing heavy. She's still a great secret. So we're looking at the circle. I'm not going to draw it as huge and outrageous as I did last week. The circle and the cross. The measure of all things. Everything in the universe is viewed spiritually inside of the circumscription of the circle as universe. The circle that has no center and whose circumference is everywhere is the idea that we have of infinity. This infinity is primal cause. It is not God. It is that which causes God to exist.
The gathering of the 12 tribes is a depiction of the square zodiac and the movement of those 12 constellations in their procession throughout the universe. The 12 sons' names are the names given to the 12 signs. The 12 symbols can be found in ancient so-called Egyptian Kemetic art. They are not Hebrew, the point I'm making here. That this knowledge about the zodiac, about astrology and astronomy, does not come from Hebrew. It comes from the black man called in this book Egyptian. These are not the 12 sons of Jacob. These are the 12 constellations of the universe.
All right, now, let's get into this Western Asia. I'm saying that the people who came from Western Asia escaping famine did not have any Hebrew faith when they came into Africa. And there's no record of a Hebrew faith before there. Why is it that when they left Africa in the so-called Exodus, they had all three? African culture, an African religion, and an African language. Now look at the origin of the so-called people you now refer to as Jews. And you're mistaken using that reference because the word Jew is of European origin. Now the Bible that you get so dewy-eyed over is one of the greatest pieces of propaganda ever written. If you want to read the Bible, why don't you read the Bible one day and read Mein Kampf the next day and see the comparison? That's hard on your mind. Because you think if you don't have Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, you don't have to have spirituality. I've got more spirituality after I put all of them down. And I've got more religion after I put all of them down.
You say at the end of each prayer, Amen. And somebody told you some lie that it means so be it. It never meant so be it, and it still doesn't mean so be it. Amen was the god of the north in Egypt. Ra, symbolized by the sun, was the god in the south. And when Egypt unified herself, they combined the god of the north and the god of the south into the one, and thus Amen-Ra. A-M-E-N-R-A.
Amen-Ra. That's interesting. Did you know his first name was Amen? That's why you say Amen when you end your prayers, because you're saying, well, so be it. It doesn't mean that. Amen is the name of the Egyptian sun god, and it's an homage to the god Amen. And in the great temples of Egypt, they would always chant out Amen, Amen, Amen. And in fact, Jesus calls himself the Amen in Revelation 3:16, I believe it is, in which he then identifies himself as the Egyptian sun god. And you're going to say, oh, hey, come on now, you've gone too far. Jesus wasn't the Egyptian sun god. Matthew 2 says Mary and Joseph took the child Jesus to Egypt to fulfill the prophecy, out of Egypt have I called my son.
And you know the story is corrupted anyway, because as they said, there was only Adam and Eve, and then they created a son named who? And Cain went out to the land of Nod and found what? They haven't been able to explain that story yet.
As a matter of fact, even in our culture, Tetragrammaton actually deals with the four gates and the four elements. And yet Tetragrammaton is presented to people who don't understand it as the ineffable word or four-letter word. You know, YHWH, and then those who don't understand the science just say Yahweh, you know, right. And then those who don't understand that say Jehovah. And yet those same people will turn around and condemn cosmology, which is actually the foundation of all religions on the planet. And so what you find is people sitting around debating their beliefs that have nothing to do with the science of life.